Welcome to another of our Railroaders program, and today on the show we have retired railroader Don Smith with us. Welcome.
Pleasure, Dave, to be here and be able to view my personal experiences with railroading to you and our viewers on the outside.
And you've certainly brought along lots of information, so I think we'll start the show as we usually do and find out a little bit about your personal history and how you became involved with the railroad. So where were you born?
I was born in Humbermouth. I guess a couple of the segments you saw before where the gypsum plant and cement plant, wharf and pier is now. That was the place of my abode, and that was my birthplace.
So from a railroader's family, or?
Railroader's family. My father was a telegrapher. This is his key that
let's take a look at this. We'll start right off with this.
This is the key that he had to learn on, and it's so funny that one of the four boys became a telegrapher. Two went for the locomotive train department, and that was it. This is it's very simple when you know the code, and you use this.
Put a date on this
for
piece
a sender.
of equipment.
That would be 1913, Dave. Sometime in 1913. And the receiving coming in, I'll just do it by hand. Somebody may even be able to picture what that is, I don't know.
It was a real message you put on there.
And like every Morse code, emergencies sometimes do arise. On the ships now, they'll be singing out SOS. And here we use BK. The operator would use BK. He would break the line, and that's called break. That to all other people on the line at that time, that's an emergency. So everybody stays quiet and gets off so he can relate whatever message he wants to do.
So that was your dad's?
That was his own personal telegraph key that he used, and we certainly nice to have it within the family. And sometime after Confederation, that was all gone, and the telephone has replaced it.
Now, speaking of your dad, I'm going to hold up this photograph, and when it comes up on the screen there, you can tell us just who is in this. And
yes, my mom and dad. He shortly after he finished his course and had a few appointments and stations, he joined up in the First World War. And the last 22 months of his war service, he was a prisoner of war in Germany, a prisoner.
So how old would he be here?
He was 17, 18.
And your mother?
And while he trained in Scotland and Ayr, he fell in love with a sweetheart. And he came back from Germany. He married her in Scotland, came down to Liverpool, and booked passage to St. John's, arriving home on June 2nd, 1919. And shortly after that, he was appointed a station master or station agent, call it what you wish, in Humbermouth.
So you were saying that your brothers, other members of your family, went into the railroad business. So what they went on to be what?
Just one other brother.
One brother?
He decided, Dave, I'd like to relate maybe a few stories as to why this would be, because we were reared up with railroad on at least three sides of us. On the front of the home, there was trains like 24 hours a day. And on the back, even to the kitchen window or our yard where we played, all this was familiar. The wharf where trains were out there switching, unloading coal boats.
Well, let's take a look, because these are photographs of Humbermouth. Put a date on this photograph taken when, about?
That would be about 1937, 38, around there.
Okay, so this goes back to when Humbermouth was a bustling railroad center.
That's about the time it was.
Yeah. Now this is where, as soon as we get this up on the screen here, this is where, this is roughly around where you were born and grew up.
Well, I would say you're just east of the station where that picture was taken. And you'll notice this big tank, that's a water tank for water and locomotives going through it. Afterwards was taken down because it's a bit inconvenient to have that on the main line.
Now the houses on the upper part of this photograph are still, some of them are still here, aren't they? This section right here. Some of them still
I
around?
don't think there's any there now.
There are homes in that area, though.
Yes, small homes, but there's not that. Those
Nothing
original homes are gone. That was a Dick's family, that big white one. And then there was two more. I believe Hannah owned one, and George Forsey conductor on the one on the end.
So we're looking towards the east.
We're looking to the east end. Whoever took that picture had to be standing pretty well near the station.
Okay, so, and as you said, the water tank right there. Now there's another one, and I like the way they did this because they go in opposite directions, because now you're looking west from roughly the same area. So we'll get that one up and just see what, okay, now where's...
That one's looking west. Now whoever took the picture again is just about east of the station. You can almost pick up the name there, Humbermouth. Right across from the station was Joseph's Hotel and Store.
That's that big building.
A big building. And then on the end there we see a little bit of a tall two-story building, that's Goodyear House. And beyond that would be Fisher's grocery store.
So, and is that the railway station on the other side?
That's the railway station. The signal semaphore is hanging out and out, down, for which means all clear, is all go.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't believe, I mean, I've never seen photographs of Humbermouth like this. These are all brand new to me, so it's amazing how much was built there in the area.
There's not too many people had cameras. I think the guy that took those pictures was a bit of a...
Yeah. Thank God he did take them, right?
Cameras,
Because he'd lost it forever. But let's stay, because this is the same general area, so put a position on this for us and give us a little idea.
Well, that trainman there is standing on the main line track. Beyond that is one of the houses of the three. There was Fred Power, who was the master mechanic, but he lived in that particular one. My father was the station, and he had to be torn down and then put away for the...
What's behind that house? What is that dock out there that we see?
That's the same pier that the ships are using now to load cement and gypsum from the gypsum plant. It's directly in the same spot.
So that, basically, the position hasn't changed with that at all?
That hasn't changed a bit. And as you notice now, down behind that home, down a little ways, about 50 feet, is where we played as youngsters. So we saw every bit of activity that was taking place, and on the boats, and it was unbelievable how much railroad was still in our little minds, you know.
Yeah. Now we're going to keep going because we got some more for the area. This is generally, now people say, well, what's a ship got to do with the railway? But all these stories are related one way or another. So tell us what we're looking at right here.
That schooner was built by a man by the name of Andrew Hull and a Mr. Matthews for the Batten brothers, who were running a grocery business there and a lumber mill.
Well, I mean, Batten Store
Batten Stores. You can see that
always with Humbermouth.
Full load of lumber there now, just in from Bell Burns, I guess, or Glen Burnie. But when you show up the next picture, I'll be able to show you where that schooner was built.
Okay.
And
this one right here, yeah. Okay, so I'll hold this one up. And because it was built...
It's unbelievable. Where those small boats are now, it's unbelievable that such a large schooner, and she was a large schooner, be able to build in that small area.
That little cove there behind those two small boats?
That's the main wharf there. I think that's the Ethy, the one that went aground on Martin's Point. It's loading now, loading freight. And
the SS Ethy.
Ethy.
A lot of... Where they put the baby ashore in the mail basket. Yeah, the stories interrelate here when you start doing history of the West Coast.
Dave, the passengers have to walk all the way out around that boardwalk to get on board. But to get back to the schooner, when they were ready to launch...
I want to get my fingers in here because we're talking right here. This is where she was built, right here.
Right on, yeah.
Okay.
And there was another ship we had there as a coastal boat called a Sagona.
Okay, here, I'll put that one. I'll just put that right in front of that. Here you go. No problem at all.
No, that's not the one.
That's not the one?
I'll get back to that one in a minute.
Okay.
Sagona was the coastal boat. That's a coal boat unloading coal. But it's the same spot. The Sagona put cables in under the rails of the boardwalk. And I don't know what really happened. We were kids watching it, and it knocked every bit of the fence, just about all the fence railing on the wharf going out, you know.
Wiped out all that railing that we saw.
Just about all of it. So at midnight, Boarder's little tug, the Rita or the Deer Lake, they all looked alike. At 12:30 at high tide, they pulled off successfully, pulled the schooner off from the launching pad and out in the deep water.
You know what amazes me, that in the other series that we did on the mill basket about the paper company, we kept seeing a lot of reference to that wharf that was in Humbermouth. And a lot of the freight came on that, and a lot of the materials that were brought in put ashore on that, and the trains that went on out on it. Speaking of trains, let's talk about this, because this also relates to, this is the turntable up in Humbermouth, and a lot of people heard about there was a turntable there. Just explain to us what it was.
But what I was saying to you, that the roundhouse was to the east of us, the machine shop and the roundhouse, and I feel that that was the only roundhouse in Newfoundland that was housed in. But if you could see the rails along the front where your thumb is now,
Yeah.
that is what we call stalls. There's two men on each end of that table would balance that locomotive, bring her over so she could be lined up with those two tracks, with the tracks on the turntable, and then you can work that locomotive in a stall, or to do any repairs, whatever had to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course, went around in a circle. There was upwards to 6 or 7 stalls. So it didn't complete a full circle, but enough to call it the roundhouse. So that's the real meaning of roundhouse. For a lot of viewers probably don't understand what is a roundhouse.
Right. And a lot of people who don't realize just how much was in Humbermouth at the time when, you know, your personal history, go back again to, you were saying like when you started and you got interested because your dad was working there and so on. Your biggest job that you had, you were an engineer. Did you go all the way through the system with the trains, or how far did you go?
Yes, Dave, I did. We all have to start off on the bottom of the rung of the ladder, of course, and our first job was to calling engine crews and cleaning of the ashes of the ash pits when the locomotive fires would be cleaned. And what I mean by cleaned is a bit, you know, all the old coal would turn into clinker.
Yeah, we can just show
That's the dead ash, that's no good to anybody.
That's
all
not
it does
good
is
enough.
block
I can hold that.
All it does is block the oxygen from getting up to give you fire.
So this, what I have in my hand is called a clinker.
That's the clinker. That's the dead ash of this piece here, which is a little block of coal.
Okay.
And that was our first job. That was the first experience of learning our way. It was all steam engines at the time. It was all coal-burning engines.
How old were you?
I started off when I was 13.
13.
My oldest brother went just ahead of me. We both, I guess, wanted to follow the footsteps of the railway engineers rather than operators. He accidentally lost his life in Crow Gulch, just west of the mill yard down here. Would be a set of points where they unloaded wood from the trains. It was an unfortunate accident. I don't know what the cause was. But he did. The engineer that was with him died with scalds and burns, and the fireman helper, Walter McQuarter, survived the accident and is still quite alive today. Maybe then I guess I wanted to get and take over Bill's path and continue. We wanted to be locomotive engineers. We saw so many trains. We played trains. Let us, for God's sake, be one someday.
Yeah.
And after a few years' experience with those beginnings on the bottom rung, my first initiation then was in the gap topsail, where myself and my colleague, John Maddock, both of us had to be there, to look after the rotary plow and the crews and the two steam engines while they were laying up at night. Our job to have full steam ahead at any time they wanted it. Because if a storm blowing and there's a call for the rotary plow, we got no time to waste.
You had to be ready to
But
go.
our job was to have everything just exactly the way it is. When the thing got on the go and started clearing snow, we could get in our beds and have our nap.
Well, I'm going to stop you there in your bed having a nap, because we're halfway through the program already. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back. We've got a lot of more photographs to show and talk about, and learn a little more about the history of the railroad. So we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to our show. Our guest today is Don Smith, and we're talking, of course, about the railway, and in particular, we were narrowed in on the Humbermouth area with the history of the railway there, but we're going to expand our vision a little bit right now, because we're going to start off with this photograph. And Don, when that comes up on our screen, we'll get you to talk a little